people, they disagree with me. It's so hard for me to get it. The issue, it's so clear. Duh! Perhaps by walking our way through a lesser issue, understanding why it is that people interpret data differently than I do, will help us to at least be patient and loving and kind toward those in the church who, believe it or not, don't agree with me. Let us use the issue of coronavirus. We all know how dangerous that was, or don't we? Some people thought, hey, this thing is going to take out the whole planet. Other people were like, what's the matter with you? Take off that dopey mask and just get to work. Bang, bang, bang. We just go at it on an issue like this. Let us work through some of the considerations that went into you making your decision, where you stand on the issue of a pandemic, and perhaps understand why other people come to a different conclusion. This is not a commentary on what the government did, should do, what should be done in the future. This is an exercise to help us go, okay, all right, I see it. These people who disagree with me, they're not knuckleheads. They just come at it a different way, with different presuppositions, with different experiences, with different knowledge. Okay, at least I get it, and I don't have to go to war with them. Then we'll take this exercise and we'll transfer it into the church. Let's talk coronavirus. Number one consideration, view of science. Let's talk about Mr. and Mrs. Jones, shall we? Mr. Jones, he thinks science is for dodo birds. No respect whatsoever for the scientific community. Thinks that they have way too much power. And this is all about epidemiologists run amok. Mrs. Jones, she has a chemistry degree. Mrs. Jones' regard for science is a 10. It's very high. Mr. Jones thinks, fa on science. Look at the disparity in one subject. Do you think Mr. and Mrs. Jones might just approach the subject a little bit differently and come up with a different conclusion? That's one consideration. Number two, view of statistics. Mr. Jones took a statistics course, and he remembers numbers can be manipulated. Mrs. Jones, on the other hand, because of her love for chemistry, she has an accounting minor. She loves numbers. They're the solution to everything. Whoa. When an epidemiologist starts talking about models and statistics, do you think they might have a different reception toward the issue? Number three, view of government. Mr. Jones, it's terrible. It's overreaching its authority. Small government. Mrs. Jones, parents, they worked for the government, and she saw their hard work in an effort to help people, and so she has a 10 view of government. Whoa, things are starting to get dicey in the Jones house, aren't they? Number four consideration, personal risk. Mr. Jones has an underlying condition. Mrs. Jones doesn't. Mr. Jones is fearing for his life. Mrs. Jones, she has no problems. She's fit as a fiddle, and she's ready to go to the grocery store without a mask. Can we start to see how it is the same information can come at two people? One person is at a 1 or a 4, the other's at an 8 or a 10, and we're going to start to interpret information a whole lot differently when it comes to something as simple as a virus. More considerations. Number 5, stock market. Mr. Jones, he's got a 401k invested in the stock market. Mrs. Jones, well, hasn't invested any money yet and really doesn't care all that much what happens to the stock market. Number 6, business owner. Mr. Jones, he has a partner in business. His whole life and his future for his kids, it's riding on his business. Mrs. Jones, she works at a firm where she's never had to worry about a payroll. And so she just doesn't see any sort of threat or danger with businesses having to close their doors because of shelter in place due to coronavirus. Now consider all of these issues swirling around inside of everybody's brain. Can we see how the same information getting dumped into two noggins can elicit two totally different responses? Is it any wonder that we've been fighting over this stuff? More considerations. Number 7, nearing retirement. That'll affect how you see coronavirus and the government response. Hey, what am I going to live on if the economy is shut down? Open up the place. Let us go. I need my retirement fund to be pumped back up. Another person, they never invested it in the stock market. It's all in gold, or they buried it in their backyard. And furthermore, they're 42. They're not nearing retirement. What are you so uptight about, dude? Another consideration with corona, a fear of death. Mr. Jones, he's terrified to die. Mrs. Jones has never really troubled her all that much. He's a 1, she's a 10. Are we adding up the numbers yet? Number 9, work ethic. Mr. Jones, he is a worker. He loves working. Get up in the morning and rush off to the place and get busy. Mrs. Jones, she's a little bit on the lazy side, and she's not all that nuts about going to the office. She doesn't like the traffic. So the government says, hey, everybody, got to work from home. Mr. Jones is like, gonna want to work from home. Mrs. Jones, sounds pretty good to me. Do you see how we come up with different conclusions to the same issues? One more thought on corona. Skin color. If you happen to be in one of the people groups that is more affected by corona, you're going to have a different response to it than somebody who isn't. That is just 10 different considerations that go into you and me trying to figure out, do I agree with the government when it comes to a pandemic? Do I agree with the epidemiologists? Do I think we should shut down, open up, release people, keep them locked up? Do you see how it is we can come to loggerheads based on how we understand smaller issues that we maybe even are not cognizant of that go into our final decision?